to the second breaking news to me. Why did I actually read that like a news narrator? Okay. Anyways, in the last video I realized I didn't actually say the name out loud because I forgot. Oops. Anyways, today's video will have 3 segments once again. First we'll talk about writing and scripting, then we'll talk about visual graphics, then of course Easter eggs. Though unfortunately this video will have to be split into 2 parts because I wrote too much in the script. So in the last episode I didn't talk too much about the writing process since it was just an introduction, but in this episode we have a bit more substance. In this episode, we get to see a glimpse of Venus's life and understand her horrible sleep schedule. I feel your pain. We'll get into more detail about that in later episodes. In my opinion, she could probably get up early if she really needed to, but of course there's not really a reason for her to do that at the moment. And I also just realized I said in my opinion, but I'm literally the author. What are you gonna do? Tell me I'm wrong? I made the show! Anyways, in the convenience store we can see Kai buying yellow roses. Yellow roses typically symbolize friendship. And that's all you're getting out of me because I can't spoil stuff. We will talk about this later. That was a little bit angry. Okay. I'll skip over the rest of the convenience store scene because that speaks for itself. It's a store. At dinner I really wanted Venus to seem kind of alluring and rather mysterious. And I think cards are a great way to portray that. To me, if you're good at cards, you're definitely a little bit shady and hard to read, especially since cards are usually associated with games like poker. So, on the topic of poker, Venus holds a poker face in this scene, acting really intimidating. I can say that word now. There were 2 very specific people I'm talking about because I had a crisis trying to say intimidating and imitating. She tries to seem really intimidating as she tries to read Kai. Obviously, her poker face is broken when Kai asks her that specific question. In my mind, she doesn't react to him asking when the police start to investigate and stuff because that's a question she's been asked before. But when she's asked if she's trained in assassination, it kind of dawns on her. That's what her image is. It's still the image of your past, not who you actually are. So of course it shakes her up a bit, causing her tower to crumble. Wow, cool. I was supposed to use the double question, but obviously neither of them did with saving it, which should technically be against the rules, but we're just gonna be lenient here. It also just wasn't plausible for the kind of thing I was going for, and other consequences of crumbling the card tower wouldn't suit the scene at all. That actually wasn't the original plan for the scene. I have the original script, and I figured since it would probably never see the light of day in any other way, I should show it to you now. In the original scene, Venus was supposed to be a lot more timid about the offer and hesitant, and the rest of the scene goes like this. Narration. Lost in the jungle of words, Venus thinks to herself, Venus, I wonder if any of my job applications were accepted. Narration. And thinks. Venus. This is all in her head, by the way. Same. Is it weird for me to have dinner with my interviewer? Yes. Narration. Even after Kai finishes speaking, she's still. And then the plan would be to flood the screen with a bunch of her thoughts because overthinking is really fun and you get to think about things that you didn't think were a problem until you thought of. I said think 6 times in that sentence, but whatever. And of course I was going to include, is this a 4th wall break? Because why not, I guess. And then the final thought, which was kind of gonna break that whole mess of thoughts up, is who is the friend he's giving the flowers to? We still don't know. You don't know. I know. Sucks to be you. And really, gosh, having to read my own writing out loud is ugh. Which is very ironic considering I have a script for this video too. But anyways, it was supposed to be very, wow, internal crisis, but I decided it didn't really fit Venus's character. It was so far off from what she's supposed to be. Her personality is supposed to be very chatty, confident, I can talk to anyone sort of person. We'll find out why she's like this later on, but if I have to sum up how she interacts with other people and portrays herself very simply, that's how I'd say it. I can't really see her being timid about many things, maybe guarded but not timid. Then of course we see Kai visit a grave with the flowers that he bought earlier, and I am not going to elaborate until later. The entirety of this side series is just me trying not to spoil the entire series in 15 minutes. With that said, to avoid me potentially somehow accidentally telling you the ending, let's move on. Onto the visuals and creative process. The process behind making episode 2 was pretty grueling, similar to the first episode, but because I did it in a shorter period of time and I tracked all my progress obsessively, it was more obvious. For example, I make to-do lists for each episode in order to keep things organized as you do. It usually consists of a few categories: pre-production, like reviewing the script, general/animation, backgrounds, props, finishing touches, which is like reviewing all the content and any other small changes, and finally, after exportation. That's the category name purely because it's such a pain to export the files that I have to ask my mom with her monster of a laptop to let me export my big boy files with it. So usually whenever I export an episode of News to Me, I just have my 2 laptops there. I'm airdropping one thing to another because I know very well if I try and export like anything that big on my laptop, I'm not gonna have a laptop. So in total there's 6 categories, but the first one is only like 1 task, so we'll say 5. It sounds like a lot, but I'm sure there couldn't be that much wrong. There were 51 things on that to-do list and I had to do them all. Okay, to be fair, some of them are like bingo spaces, like, you know, that free space in bingo that you get, like special scene and sort out backgrounds are boxes I only tick after all of the other stuff under that category are finished, but still, it's a lot of stuff. Anyways, like I said, episode 2 was completed a lot faster since I already had some of the content I needed, but also not really, because on a whim I decided to remake both Kai and Venus's animation models. And I do it again. I'm not kidding, I might, because I think Kai's hair and face could use some tweaking, but that will probably be done after episode 5, which reminds me, after I release episode 5, there will be a bit of a gap between the next episode, just because I want to have a bit of a breather before continuing, and to fix up some stuff. It probably won't be long because I can't sit still for the life of me. Heck, the only reason I'm taking a break at all is because I have a lot of personal stuff coming up. I think the longest the gap will be is like a month between episode 5 and 6, but preferably shorter because I don't want to wait that long, and I'm sure you don't either. But I just want some time to make sure I can have my animation models on par with my standards. Anyways, talking about the process behind it, I want you to know that there is a horrible, awful, embarrassing, grueling voice note of me having to read the script out loud for episode 1 because I didn't want to manually lip sync it. Basically, to give you some hindsight to why I made such an awful decision that will come back to haunt me in the middle of the night. My animation software has the option to automatically match the lip syncing to an audio file. I did this in episode 1 for like the talking animations, and this god-awful audio exists. I don't know if I'm gonna... I died several times over recording that. My soul left my body and realized I wasn't done working on News to Me yet, so it came back just to haunt me. Anyways, let's talk about the visuals now. At the start, we see Venus texting on her phone. If you're curious how she got a phone despite being pretty broke, it's because she had some savings left over from redacted, you don't get to know yet, and used some of that money to buy some essentials like a phone after she found a place to live. Now, let me just tell you, if you're thinking of, maybe recreating a phone's UI manually, don't. No. Why would you do that? It was so painful. Well, actually, I'm just exaggerating. It wasn't that bad. But it wasn't easy, because there's a lot of details you can miss. I personally opted not to include the battery just because it wasn't necessary. Also, I don't want to expose Venus for having constantly low battery. Honestly, same though. Also, if you're wondering how I managed to pull off the keyboard, that's a fun question. I didn't. I recorded myself typing those messages in WhatsApp in the inbox of one of my friends because I do not want to recreate the stupid clicky click letter by letter. I'm not doing that. I may be ridiculously invested into editing sometimes, but I'm also not that desperate. Yet. Of course, I didn't send the messages because I think if I did that, I would simply dig a hole and burrow in it forever out of embarrassment. But if I was gonna accidentally send it, it should be to someone who understands the level of sanity I have left, which is very little. So yeah, that's how the keyboard came to be. I wanted to talk about the subtitling as well because it's probably the most tiresome and grueling task of making these episodes purely because of how repetitive it is. Thus, in the first episode, the subtitle speed was not ideal at all, so I tried my best to fix it in this episode. I still don't think it was quite perfect, but it's better. In episode 3, I think it's pretty good. Anyways, I'm going to skip ahead to the grave scene once again because this scene was very satisfying to me. Not because of the grave, but because it turned out exactly how I envisioned it in my head. I was really proud of the dark clouds transitioning into a little bright flower field. The quote also sounds like something a Facebook mom would repost. So, success? Okay, so unfortunately this video has to be split into 2 parts because I accidentally talked for way too long. I'm also now realizing that I'm pretty sure the second half is gonna be late because next week, depending on when I upload this, we have episode 3 coming out. Oops, I'm spoiling things. Anyways, maybe I'll give you another spoiler in the next half of this. And now the schedule for this side series is going to be kind of funky, but it's okay. Thank you for watching. Bye!